Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And tonight I want to talk about the breaking news. Oh my gosh, the breaking news. Look at Vinnie on Court TV. Oh my God, he says, I'm floored. I'm just floored. Ah, there's this guy. His name is Gary Oliva. And people are wondering, I'm wondering, did he kill JonBenet? This is why I left doing television work. This show is incredibly embarrassing. This is Court TV. Do better, Court TV. Have things on Court TV that you actually do proper research for and you ask good questions, because this was an embarrassment. And mind you, they got their information today in 2023 from, of course, the finest rags ever. Let's see, The Sun, the New York Post. And this is supposed to be brand new news that this guy, this creepy dude, oh my God, he says he killed JonBenet. This is something we've never heard of before, except that this information has been around since about like 1996, like right after JonBenet died. This guy popped up. All right. So, and Lou Schmidt, you remember that guy that was investigating? He even claimed this guy was involved with a bunch of people, and they all broke into the house and did something. And when he was arrested a few years later, he had a stun gun on him, and that's why a stun gun was used in the murder of JonBenet Ramsey. Whole bunch of ridiculous theories. Okay, but what about this show? All right. I'm going to go through this show, and what's most important in the show isn't the stupidity of everything in it, but I'm going to point all those things out. But it is what John Ramsey said himself, because he came on. It was a 45-minute show, and Vinnie is talking to John Ramsey, and the things that John Ramsey said were fascinating. Fascinating. I know a lot of people believe that JonBenet Ramsey was killed by an intruder. I personally find no evidence of that. And they believe John Ramsey is a grieving father, and he has made the rounds, even goes to CrimeCon to talk about, how investigations should be run, and he's fought for DNA tests and all of this. And if you listen further in my video, you will find how many things John Ramsey said that were disingenuous and absolutely simply not true. Stuff that he knows better and he's going to tell you differently. And in my opinion, that does not inspire me to believe that he is an honorable person. Sorry, John Ramsey. All right, let me get to the whole story. Okay, now I'm sorry, my air conditioning is not working well, so I might sweat through this whole interview. Whew. Okay, anyway. Yeah, this is not a live show, but I don't edit. So what you get is what you get. All right. Now, let me show you what the story was about. All right. So the first thing they do is bring on this fella. He's from The Sun. All right. And his name is Lou Kenton. I made a whole bunch of notes. So I'm going to go through them so I don't forget things that I really want to say. All right. Lou Kenton. Where are you, Lou? Here you are. All right. Lou Kenton. He's supposed to be a senior reporter. I'm sorry, but the guy looks 17 years old, so I'm not sure how he's a senior reporter. But all righty. So he comes on to tell this dramatic story about what The Sun has just put out, what they've just found out about this fellow, Gary Oliva, that he claims he killed JonBenet. And he's written tons of letters saying he did so because he's this pedophile who's in prison. And it's brand new information. And it's pretty funny because if I went over here, and this is from the Daily Mail, exclusive, I killed JonBenet Ramsey, convicted pedophile. Gary Oliva has confessed to the murder of 6-year-old pageant princess in prison, letters to his friend claiming it was an accident. Now, if you look up in the corner there, is the corner showing there, it does say 2023. And I was told that the Daily Mail had put that out in 2019. Well, it did. So when I went back to the Google search engine, yes, it came out in 2019, but they just reposted it after the Post and the Sun came out. They just reposted their 2019 article because, hey, they got to get in on the fun, right? Okay, so the guy tells this story. All right, so the story is basically this: that this creepy dude, Gary Oliva, he was friends with. Let me show you who the guy is. He's friends with. This creepy dude. Okay, not like creepy people here. They were supposedly high school friends, and then somehow Gary Oliva's in Colorado, and this dude, his name, I forgot what his name is. Oh, Vale. Yeah, Vale is his last name, and he's in California, and they send letters back and forth, and so in the beginning they just seem, the regular letters supposedly. Okay, and then after a while, mind you, let me see if I got the right thing here. Yes, after graduate. Now look at this is funny. Look at the top, July 11th, 2023. Okay, I'm about a week late, but what date is it? I'm a little late, but all right. It wasn't yesterday. This came out, but all right. The U.S. Sun. Woo, woo, woo. Okay, this is Court TV knows how to put together these pictures. You see, after graduating high school, Oliva started writing to Vale, sharing updates about his life, which prompted a years-long exchange of mail between the pair. The correspondences started off innocently enough, Vale said, but sometime around 1989, the subject of Oliva's messages suddenly became incredibly dark and disturbing, making frequent mention of blood, murder, cannibalism, and even child rape. This is 1989, mind you. All right. I gotta take off my glasses. They're blurring out on me. I'm gonna ask. He might have been your high school friend, but if your friend's a creeper, why are you having these exchanges with him? As soon as the guy starts talking about cannibalism and child rape, I'm gonna say you don't answer any more letters. But this is not how it works. You see, he stays friends with this dude. Okay, so now this is what supposedly happens next. All right, then it says, so this is the quote here. That damn phone call convinces me that Gary's involved with the murder of JonBenet. I got a phone call 6 hours before it was in the newspaper from someone in Boulder, 13 houses away, telling me they'd hurt a little girl. I really feel that Gary did this. All right. All right. So now this is a problem. So supposedly this guy, before the papers tell the public that JonBenet has been murdered, he calls his friend and said, I hurt the little girl. I hurt a little girl. I dropped her, cracked her head open. Oh, I didn't mean it. Okay. And then he supposedly calls the police after the news comes out in the newspaper. Now, mind you, he knows this is your creepy dude friend who has been talking about cannibalism and child rape, calls you up and tells you he's murdered a child in Boulder. And you don't bother to call the police right away. You want to think about it. You're kind of busy that day. Maybe you want to take a good night's sleep and wait till you see if you find out if anything shows up in the paper. Really? Okay. I'm having trouble buying that. So anyway, supposedly then he calls the police and tells the story. But by that time, the information has come out in the newspaper. So now there's this problem with the phone call. I do believe the guy made the phone call because he's been claiming he killed JonBenet for years. All right. He's got weird fetishes. He's oh my God. He's like John Mark Carr. I love JonBenet. She changed my life. He's like enamored by her. He's one of those creepy dudes, just like John Mark Carr. He wants to have his picture next to JonBenet's picture. That's who he is. All right. I believe he made the phone call. But I don't believe he made the phone call before the press came out with a story. I believe he made the phone call after, making the claim, I did it, to his friend. And so that friend then called the police and then backed up the story. I don't trust his friend. I think he was trying to make it sound better. Okay. There's actually other information out there that says Days after the little girl was found beaten, strangled, and potentially sexually assaulted, Vale says he received a call from his old classmate. Days after. Okay, who knows? I mean, this is the media. And the problem with the media is the crap. I'm sorry, media. That's one of the reasons I don't do television anymore, rarely do interviews anymore, because you never tell the exact story properly. You don't look for the facts. You don't do your own research. You're gossip people. And so I actually don't know if the friend actually said days later he called, or whether it was a day before, or whether he changed his story. I'm going to say the only people that really know are the police, and I don't know what the police said about that. The police, however, basically discounted this guy as a kook bird, okay? And so that was that. And then time goes on, and he writes these letters, you see, these letters saying how, he killed her and she was the love of his life, and all dumb stuff. Anyway, it's been out there for a long time. So I don't know why all of a sudden now it has to pop up again. But okay, let's go on to some of the other issues. All right. Now, let me look at let me go to now some of the very interesting things that are said by John Ramsey. Okay. And all right. So Vinnie, now I've done quite a few interviews with Vinnie. He's always been a very nice man. And he's working for the networks. And the networks tell you to do a story, you do the story. The networks tell you what they want you to say. You say that because you're making a big paycheck. Okay. It's his job. Even if it wasn't a big paycheck, it's the world he's been in forever. So I don't know if I blame Vinnie for doing what people tell him to do, because this is the way the media works. But court TV, sorry, you should be ashamed of yourself. It's appalling. But anyway, I digress. So let's go to John Ramsey shows up. Now he's going to ask the questions because, oh my God, this guy could have killed your daughter, right? So he starts questioning John Ramsey. Now, so he goes back to the beginning in a sense. And he says, why didn't they look at this guy? And John Ramsey says, well, the problem has always been that, first of all, they're a crappy police department. They're a small police department. They didn't ask for any help, and they just didn't know what they were doing, and so they screwed up. And they'll always look at the parents first, and that's why they were suspicious of us. No, that's not exactly true. In this particular case, because actually these were well-known people who were quite wealthy. Actually, in a sense, the police are almost afraid to accuse them of anything. This is not like they went into a real low-income neighborhood and the person's already been charged 7 times with domestic abuse or child abuse, and they're like, I suspect the parents. These were well-known people. And so for them to jump on these people as killing their daughter, I don't believe it in a minute. What happened was they acted really weird. They acted in such a strange way that the red flags went up, and they're going, something's not right here. And then, of course, there was the note, the note that was left on the stairs that Patsy Ramsey found, this ransom note, 3 pages long, which was so bizarre that things didn't make sense. But he, blames the police on that. All right, so let me go a little further on this. Because he made some great statements. I want to make sure I get the statements correctly here. All right. Then he goes on to say there was unidentified male DNA on JonBenet, and they hid it and tried to explain it away. And he's been fighting about this DNA stuff for years now. Why is this happening? Well, there was no semen. There was no blood. It wasn't saliva. It was touch DNA. Touch DNA on her underwear. Now, mind you, touch DNA is it can be really good under certain circumstances. For example, in the Idaho case right now, we had touch DNA of Brian Koberger on the knife sheath. And the problem here is that it's really hard to, first of all, Brian Koberger had never been in the house of the 4 people that were murdered. Never been there. Had no connections with them specifically. And he also bought a knife off of Amazon. Well, but even if he didn't, even if they didn't know where the knife came from or the sheath came from, how would his DNA get on that sheath? Somebody said, well, maybe he went to a store and look, oh, this is a nice looking sheath and set it down. And then the killer happened to get that same sheath and go in there. Probably not. So along with all the other evidence, the DNA from Brian Koberg on that sheath is very telling. But in JonBenet's case, she was out at parties, running around. There's just too many people, plus the fact it could have even come from the factory. It's like nobody has a clue where the DNA comes from. Now, mind you, it doesn't mean they won't check the DNA against somebody. They checked it against the Ramsey family. It did not match anybody in the Ramsey family, which means so many people are going, oh my, see, that means they didn't do it. No, it has nothing to do with that at all, because that DNA could easily have come. Touch DNA moves from thing to thing to thing. It's so easy for it to end up there. That's not proof of anything. If it were semen DNA, yes, but it wasn't. Okay, was blood DNA? Yes, but it wasn't. It's just touch DNA, and it's very questionable in the circumstances surrounding that underwear. That it could be kids' DNA, for God's sake. You know what I mean? She was playing with children, and they just roll all over the place. So John Ramsey keeps going on about the DNA and want it tested more and more. And he's got nothing to lose because he knows it's not his DNA. It's nobody in his family's DNA. So he can shout to the cows come home about getting that DNA tested. Not going to bother him any. Okay. And if it happens to match anybody, he's going to be thrilled because, hey, it does point the finger elsewhere. All right. So let's go on. One of the interesting things about this is that he said later on that the creepy dude, hold on a second. Our pedophile guy who claims he was with JonBenet, he claims that, oh, I don't know if they ever tested that DNA. So as far as I can see, they tested it against him and it wasn't his DNA. So either, I don't know who's lying here. The media's lying. He's lying. Hard to tell. All right. But that's one of the claims. The next claim, which is pretty funny, is that he's written all these letters. Let me see if I can find the thing about his he says, John Ramsey, that the handwriting, he said, well, you know, the handwriting experts tell me that they should be able to tell, you know, there's with the fact that the letter, the ransom note was 3 pages long. If they test that against somebody else, they should immediately be able to tell who it is. And they ask him, well, Vinnie asked him, well, have they tested against him? And he goes, well, I don't know. And then he's like, and Vinnie did ask a good question there. He said, like, let's see, wait a minute, hold on a second. No, he just asked if a DNA handwriting comparison had been done. And he said, not that I know of. Dude, you got PIs. You got a ton of money that you can use to go after, get some handwriting analysts and test. Because the funny thing is, if you're not going to test it, well, over on that website, you know, the Daily Mail, there's his handwriting. There's his handwriting. They have the letters. His handwriting is there. How do you not know, John Ramsey, whether his handwriting matches or it doesn't match? You're not telling the truth about a bunch of stuff. You're trying to keep him as a possible suspect. He says, oh, he should have been a top suspect from the beginning, and he should still be a top suspect. Why? Supposedly his DNA doesn't match, his handwriting doesn't match, and that was also looked at, and his handwriting did not match. Okay, I think I have that here. A ransom note demanding $118,000 for JonBenet's return was found in the kitchen staircase at the Ramsey home shortly before her body was found. The handwriting does not match Oliva's in his letters to Vale. This is a funny thing, but it's possible the note was penned by an accomplice. This is Lou Schmidt. Okay, maybe it's not his handwriting, but maybe an accomplice wrote the handwriting. All right. Now, let's be real. The next thing Vinnie asked John Ramsey is, how did the guy get in the house? And John Ramsey starts telling this like amazingly ludicrous story. First, he tells a story about the room her body was found, and the window was open, and there's a suitcase next to there. So that might have been it. Although there was never any evidence of any footprints any place, and there were spider webs and all that stuff. And then he goes on, well, there's also five doors on that downstairs floor, and one of them was open. Because he said they didn't really bother. It's such a big house and so old, they didn't bother to really lock the windows and the doors because they're so naive. They didn't know about creepy people in Boulder. Look, I'm pretty sure if you live in Boulder and there's creepy people around, you know it. Okay, so then the next thing is this. He says, so anyway, the guy he didn't put on the alarm system because one time JonBenet set it off accidentally. It hurt her ears. So they decided not to use it anymore because they were naive and they didn't believe bad people existed. Now, it gets worse. The stuff he said, I'm like, so then he says that John Douglas came in, of course, to analyze the crime. And he said this, that somebody killed her not because they were a pedophile. This is the FBI profiler here. It's not because it was a pedophile, but because somebody was angry with you or hated you, wanted to get back at you. It was revenge. That's why they killed JonBenet and they left the note. And then he tells this crazy story. He says that just before this happened, that his company had made this sale, that had reached this sales this moment where the company had done really well and like, woo, we hit this kind of place where it was exciting. And so our publicity person wanted to put something in the newspaper that we were achieving these things. And I was against it. And I thought it wasn't a good idea. Something told me it wasn't a good idea to get that kind of publicity. But I went ahead and let her do it because the employees were looking forward to it. So he's all worried. He claims that this might be a reason why JonBenet was killed by this revenge thing, because he had a story in the paper about his business success. I'm pretty sure that almost every business person constantly puts stories in the paper about their business success. And he's worried about that, but he's not worried about his daughter being in pageants where she's seen all dressed up like an adult practically, and she's all over the place looking all cutesy wootsy. He's not worried about that. He's just worried about somebody said his business was doing well. Okay. Can we get any sillier? All right. We probably can. All right. So now let me just go to this dude. This is how stupid the story is. Let's ignore the DNA not matching. Let's ignore his handwriting not matching. Let's go with the concept that supposedly, and the Sun said, their senior reporter who looks 17, that that he lived just, what was it, like 13 houses down. And they made it sound like the houses were crushed, so he's like barely just down. Oh, he didn't live. No, I'm sorry. He got his mail from a church that was about 13 houses down. And then another story says it was 10 blocks. Well, if you have big houses, the 10 blocks are actually quite far. So supposedly he picked up some mail from a church that was about 10 blocks away from the Ramsey home. So what? So he might have been sort of in the neighborhood once in a while, because I'm going to say the dude's homeless, sleeping on the street. I'm kind of trying to understand how much mail he might be getting. I mean, really? I mean, maybe all the creditors are after him. I don't know. But maybe his little buddy out in California, he's writing letters back. He's got back and forth. He's got to see him. But I'm going to say he probably shows up once a month or something to pick up his mail. He's probably not in any big hurry because he doesn't have any money to pay any bills anyway. And probably nobody cares that this is a creepy dude. I'm pretty sure his family is hiding from him anyway and not writing letters. So anyway, supposedly, get this guy, mind you, he does drugs. As far as I can see, there's some evidence of that. He's homeless. He's crazy. And then this guy in that state somehow gets into his house. We're not talking about a seasoned criminal. We're not talking about a clever burglar. We're not even talking about a serial killer who knows how to try to get away and not with a crime and not leave evidence. This guy somehow gets into his house, mind you. Doesn't leave any footprints, doesn't leave any fingerprints, doesn't leave anything. He's not heard, he's not seen, he's not found. And on top of that, he's able to write an entire 3-page a ransom note detailing stuff that only people who knew the Ramseys would know. But Mr. Homeless Dude suddenly has information from somewhere. Oh my God. The stupidity of this, it's astounding. So what we've got is the media pushing junk stories, which is outrageous and repulsive. But we have John Ramsey sitting there going along with the program and telling stories that do not, they're real questionable. Sorry, John Ramsey. Everything you said made me look at you even more, because you know he didn't do anything. You know he's not a suspect. You know he couldn't have gotten into your home and done any of these things and written that letter. You know that. You know all these things. And all the things you say to try to cover things don't come off very well. Does that mean that someone in your family is guilty? Am I saying that? No. What I'm saying is, you're sure not helping out your own case. And on top of that, one of the funniest things that just came out, just to end this came out after the arrest of the man in the Long Island serial killer case. This came out. John Andrew Ramsey, that's the son, says JonBenet's killer will have a similar bio to Gilgo Beach murder suspect Rex Herman. Well, your son is now a profiler who can't profile for crap. I mean, what kind of junk is that? And again, media, why do you report this junk? It's hard to take the media seriously when you put out stuff that's juvenile and full of lies and full of nonsense. It's really hard to take you seriously. So shame on you, media. It's embarrassing. It really is. But I am glad to have heard what John Ramsey had to say. And I think you should pay attention to when all these people say, well, there's no way the family could be involved. Check out what he's saying, because what he's saying as a profiler throws up a whole bunch of red flags. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this craziness. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. Check my playlist for all the different cases that I do cover in this on my channel. And thank you for being here. And yes, this one kind of just blew me out of the water when I saw it. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But hey, I shouldn't be surprised anymore. Thanks for being here.